In June of 2026, Google signed a contract with SpaceX. The price, $920 million per month. Not for rockets, not for satellites, for computing power, 110,000 Nvidia GPUs rented by one of the most powerful technology companies on Earth, because even Google does not own enough of the infrastructure that intelligence now runs on. That is where we are. Every AI system you have ever used runs on physical hardware. Chips, data centers, power, cooling, fiber optic cable. Every query you have ever typed into an AI system traveled through infrastructure owned by someone. The question almost nobody is asking is who that someone is. In 2026, 4 companies, Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft, plan to spend a combined $725 billion on AI infrastructure. That is not a typo. $725 billion in a single year, more than the entire global semiconductor industry generates in annual revenue. And underneath all of it, one company controls the hardware that makes most of it possible. Nvidia holds approximately 92% of the market for AI chips, not a majority, not a plurality. Effectively, every GPU that trains every frontier AI model on Earth. To understand what AI infrastructure concentration actually means, it helps to think about what AI requires to exist. Training a frontier AI model requires thousands of specialized chips running simultaneously for weeks or months. It requires enormous amounts of electricity. It requires specialized cooling systems. It requires high-speed network connectivity between machines. And it requires all of these things at a scale that only a handful of organizations on Earth can currently provide. According to analysis from the Epoch AI Research Institute, Google holds approximately 25% of all global AI compute capacity. Microsoft holds the equivalent of roughly 3.5 million high-end GPUs in compute capacity. Amazon follows. Meta follows. Together, U.S. hyperscalers control more than 60% of all global AI compute. That concentration is already significant. What makes it more significant is the trajectory. Synergy Research Group projects that hyperscale operators will control more than 2/3 of all worldwide data center capacity by 2031. The market analyst Carmi Levy put it directly. When these companies are essentially the only game in town, it becomes difficult to ignore their ability to influence pricing, terms, and availability on a market that literally has no other choice. Beneath the hyperscalers sits a layer of concentration even more acute. Nvidia does not just dominate the AI chip market. In a single quarter of 2026, Nvidia's data center revenue reached $75 billion, a 92% increase year over year. The company's chips power AI training at Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and virtually every AI startup attempting to build at scale. Its proprietary software platform, CUDA, is so deeply embedded in AI development workflows that switching away from it requires rebuilding significant portions of a company's technical infrastructure from scratch. CUDA is the software moat that protects the hardware monopoly. Regulators have noticed. The Department of Justice began investigating Nvidia's market dominance in September of 2024, examining whether the company had used its position to engage in anti-competitive practices. The investigation is ongoing. The concentration of power in Nvidia creates a specific kind of fragility. If Nvidia faces supply constraints, production issues, or decides to raise prices significantly, every company in the AI race feels the impact simultaneously. There is no backup. There is no alternative at comparable performance. There is only Nvidia. And the companies that depend on it have no real choice but to depend on it more. The concentration of AI infrastructure has consequences that extend far beyond the technology industry. Governments around the world have begun announcing sovereign AI initiatives, programs to build national AI capabilities independent of foreign technology companies. Saudi Arabia announced more than $15 billion in AI investment. The United Arab Emirates, Japan, the European Union, India. Every one of these sovereign AI programs is being built on Nvidia chips. The sovereignty is not quite what it appears. Tech Policy Press identified the implication precisely. If nations choose to go all in on AI, will they be willing to investigate Nvidia for monopolistic conduct when they themselves have become dependent on its infrastructure? The lack of alternatives gives Nvidia enormous economic, informational, and political power. As it reaps the benefits of AI infrastructure investment, Nvidia can shape the market through its allocation of vast resources and can bend the geopolitical agenda to meet its needs. This is the part of the AI story that rarely makes it into the product announcements. Not the capabilities, not the benchmarks, not the efficiency improvements, but the quiet reality that the physical layer of intelligence is controlled by a smaller number of entities than most people realize. And those entities are not governments, they are not international bodies, they are private companies making decisions about access, pricing, and availability without public accountability. Concentration creates efficiency. It also creates fragility. When a large portion of global AI capability runs through a small number of physical facilities controlled by a small number of companies dependent on a small number of chip suppliers, a single point of failure becomes a global event. Consider what that means in practice. A software error in a widely deployed AI system does not affect one company's customers. It affects every organization running that system simultaneously. A supply disruption at Nvidia does not slow one AI project. It slows every AI project dependent on that hardware at the same time. The Internet was designed with redundancy as a founding principle, decentralization as a feature. AI infrastructure is being built on the opposite principle: concentration, centralization, efficiency over resilience. The data center build-out has collided with another constraint nobody adequately planned for: power. Data centers, AI systems, and cryptocurrency mining together consumed approximately 2% of global electricity consumption in 2022. That figure is projected to double by 2026. In many regions, the electrical grid was not designed to deliver this much power to concentrated locations this quickly. Water consumption for cooling systems has become a documented concern in drought-affected areas. The physical footprint of AI infrastructure is expanding faster than the infrastructure that supports it. The data center build-out now dwarfs the entire global semiconductor industry that produces the chips inside those data centers. And Nvidia's data center revenue of $75 billion in a single quarter is a financial signal of something more fundamental. The infrastructure of intelligence has become the most valuable resource on Earth, more valuable than oil, and more concentrated. Every AI model you have ever used was trained on hardware owned by someone, stored in a facility owned by someone, powered by electricity controlled by someone, cooled by water drawn from somewhere, connected through fiber owned by someone. The intelligence is not neutral. It runs on infrastructure, and infrastructure is always owned. The concentration we have described is not the result of conspiracy. It is the result of economics. Building AI infrastructure at scale requires capital that only a small number of organizations can deploy. The companies that deployed it first built advantages that compound. More compute enables better models. Better models attract more customers. More customers generate more revenue. More revenue funds more compute. The loop runs in one direction, and it has been running for years. The question worth sitting with is not whether this concentration exists. The data is unambiguous. The question is what it means for everyone who depends on AI systems, which is increasingly everyone, that the physical foundation of those systems is controlled by 4 companies, 1 chip manufacturer, and a small number of facilities whose locations most people will never know. What it means that the electricity powering those facilities is increasingly straining the grids of the cities and towns surrounding them. What it means that the water cooling those facilities is drawn from watersheds already under pressure. What it means that the decisions about who gets access to compute are made by private boards accountable to shareholders, not to the billions of people whose lives increasingly depend on what runs through those systems. 4 companies, 1 chip manufacturer. Everything that calls itself intelligent runs through them, whether you consented to that arrangement or not. And as always, this is Ghost in the BIOS. And until next time, stay human.